Thank you, Paula. Sabah al-khair. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and welcome to this second edition of Gateway Gulf Investment Forum. I'm Nadine Hani. I present the business news on Alarabiya Business, and it is such a pleasure and honor to be here again in Bahrain for this forum. I will be moderating a couple of sessions today. Over the next 15 minutes, this is a one-on-one fireside chat titled Diversification, Digitalization, and Driving Growth Through Global Trade. As we know, our region's geographic location gives it a competitive edge to be a major player in the logistics sector. Its strong relationships with East and West also allow it to be a major hub for global trade in a complex world which had its fair share of supply chain disruption. The geopolitical situation has created challenges for global trade, which in turn revealed an urgent need for diversified trade routes. So how are major logistics players navigating those challenges? What is the outlook for global trade in an increasingly polarized world? And what role can digitalization play as a tool for building resilient trade networks? We will address those questions to our esteemed speaker. It is our pleasure to have with us today His Excellency Mr. Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, Group Chairman and CEO of DP World. Your Excellency, thank you very much for being here with us today. Global trade has been...
Thank you.
Global trade has been in the news, but maybe for all the wrong reasons, given all the challenges that it has been facing. Let us start by discussing those challenges to global trade in general and to the GCC specifically.
Well, when you speak about challenges, the traditional trade routes are not coping with the challenges we face today. I'm not just talking about the Suez Canal, which now diverted through the Cape of Good Hope, but many other circumstances. Geopolitical is one of them. Today, companies cannot budget, not knowing whether by the time the cargo reaches somewhere, if it reaches it, things haven't changed, duty hasn't been put, and so on. But these are circumstances we cannot control. But when you talk about trade routes, definitely we need to find new trade routes. And we've seen how fragile the supply chain. A ship, Evergreen of Uniglory, or Evergreen, got stranded for 30 hours in Suez Canal. Delayed cargo more than 6 months, with billions of cost. Look at the pandemic. China was closed for a long time, which means cargo that's supposed to go and already paid for hasn't left. Factories are closed, ports are closed, and then the new demand cannot be met. I never seen in my life where you want to buy a car and you have to wait for a few months. You have to book it.
7-8 months of waiting time for
this shows the supply chain is very weak and cannot cope. And look, almost 90% of trade is carried by sea. So these are challenges. How we dealt with it as DP World, we tried to find other routes, alternatives. For example, we carry today, if we have a cargo going to Kazakhstan or Iraq, or so on, we take it from our port in Karachi by road, and there are two routes, either through Afghanistan, it's possible, or through Iran, and we get it in 8 days. So this is something today we are working with the cargo owners, because they don't just need somebody to pick it up. How do you get it somewhere? So that's a new route. Of course, UAE and Iraq and Saudi Arabia are all working on this India route with India all the way to Europe, which is very interesting because it will go through the UAE and then, of course, by road, and eventually will reach destination
You're
Europe.
Talking about the economic corridor, which was announced.
Yes, which is very important. We need more people. You see, alternative to Suez Canal doesn't mean we're going to reduce the Suez Canal traffic, because it is a lifeline of trade. It is the superhighway that connects cargo coming from America, Mediterranean, Red Sea, going all the way to Far East. It's a very important lifeline. But other alternatives will help to cope with that.
Today, Your Excellency, can you paint a picture? How is the situation? As you said, traffic was diverted south around the Cape of Good Hope, and then this made the route much longer and much more expensive. Is it still the case today? How much of global trade is still being disrupted because of those geopolitical issues happening there?
You see, supply chain is not resilient. Trade is resilient. So trade, imagine it like water comes from a mountain, will always reach the bottom. So trade will find its way. It might cost money, but it's the same. Today, if you ship something to Europe and you have to go through the Cape of Good Hope, it didn't affect the shipping line. And the consumer are paying the same price. There's nobody who can get it cheaper. And so people are coping with it. But the delays is something that really disturbs people.
What are the lessons learned through all these events that have been happening when it comes to the importance of trade route diversification?
Well, after the pandemic, I think it was a good lesson for the world, where we cannot rely to manufacture somewhere and ship it somewhere else. It was an idea in the 2012 and 14. People talk about nearshoring. And nearshoring means that there is no need to manufacture something thousands of miles when the consumer is somewhere else. So basically putting them onshore. This, in my opinion, poses an amazing opportunity, a window opportunity for the GCC, because many manufacturers today are moving. Example, iPhone moved their mobile phone from India, from China to India. And there are many others looking for opportunities. And clearly, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and the GCC in general, Saudi Arabia, are key. We are in the middle. We have amazing infrastructure that can be utilized, both air and sea, and even land. This window of opportunity is posing. The only thing is we need to be ready for it. We need to be ready with the infrastructure. We need to be ready with that. When you talk about other challenges, of course, today, if you look at trade, almost 80% of trade is still moving on paper. And these are problems.
Sorry, what do you mean by that it's moving on paper?
Then a digital. 85% of trade is still on paper. And digitalization is going to help. There is a study by World Bank that said if you digitalize trade, it will be an additional 1 trillion of saving on the cost.
Before we talk about digitalization, so the basic idea is that you really believe that the world is moving from globalization to regionalization, that we will not see the global trade the way it used to be before the events of the past few years.
No, it will continue. Regional trade is becoming important, but trade is, look at China, for example, today. If China moving their factory out, what does that mean? That means China will produce only for China. It's 1.4 billion people. And today, they produce almost $400 billion of Chinese products in Vietnam because they cannot produce it as cheap in China itself. What happened to China, and this is really what happened in the 80s with Japan. When their costs became so high, their companies moved out into other locations to reduce their costs. So I don't see that trade become regionally. International trade will happen, and trade resilient. People want what they need, they'll find it.
You mentioned that there is a great opportunity for GCC countries. Can you explain to us those opportunities, whether in terms of onshoring, manufacturing, or whether in terms of GCC players in global trade, such as DP World, for example?
I believe that the opportunity is for manufacturing. You can see it evident. Many industries want to move, and they look always at how easy it is to set up and how easy it is to ship out. When you have intermodal, it's a dream of people in the shipping and moving cargo. Intermodal means you can move cargo by air, by road, by rail, and by sea at ease. When these are available, that means the person who wants to ship something has so many alternatives with him, and he's not missing an opportunity. So trade will continue to flourish with all these new industries. And His Excellency, our Minister of Economy, mentioned the CEPA agreement. It's a fantastic method of removing many obstacles between countries. Indonesia, India, we did the CEPA, and it increased the business tremendously. Today, UAE part of the BRICS. It's not yet a custom union, but at least it has simplified the bureaucracy. I give you an example. Today, you ship, for example, a consignment from Frankfurt to Chicago. It takes 9 to 10 hours. But it takes 48 hours to get it out of the airport. The procedures are different. The documentation is not there. So a lot of things we do today was called pre-clearings, where if something coming somewhere, we will work in such a way to fulfill all the need of the other entities that don't belong to us, but we know what they need. So by the time the consignment comes, we can easily get it out.
Let's talk about the role of technology. You mentioned that 80% of trade is still on paper.
Yes.
Today, how can hubs and logistics ports be transformed into smart, connected facilities?
Well, I tell you, in the 2012 and 14 and 16, it's really, when I mentioned 16, it's a big transformation for us. We changed the way we look at business in general and changed our role. But one of the key was digital. We need to invest a lot in digital platforms. But we didn't have the need. It is a good idea, but I do it today or tomorrow. But when the pandemic came and we cannot communicate with people, we cannot meet people, we have no choice but to accelerate our investment in platform. Today we have many platforms like cargos.com, which is a platform for trace and track for shipping, and it gives people more visibility. We have Digital Freight Alliance, and many others. All these are helping us today. We have a port community system that we made, linking customs and the port in a port community, which means if someone wants to ship a container, he goes to this, we call Dubai Trade in Dubai, and then immediately he gets clearance from customs because it links him to them. The port will pay the charges, and he only sends somebody to ship it out. This system, we launched it also in Dominican Republic. In India, we launched it, and it's called, India it's called Bharat. In Dubai, it's called Dubai Trade. Somewhere else will be another name. We did it in UK. Our system today is called CNS in UK, where they use it for custom clearance in the UK. And it's really a pride for us when we think in the past that the English were here who developed our country, and now we're introducing new things, innovative things in UK.
When you think of investments for the next decade, how do you balance between investments in physical infrastructure, which needs to be resilient, and into technology? How do you make that balance?
Well, we have a lot of physical investment. When we buy ports, we have physical investment. The question today, how do you utilize it efficiently? And we can only use that through digital transformation. When I tell you about Cargos today is a platform where we provide service for the cargo owner, trade finance, insurance, okay, trace and track, many things
One-stop
today
shop.
where he can, with a click of a button, he can tell where is his cargo, how it's going to reach. We had an instance with a customer who, for example, there is a consignment. The manufacturer asks the distribution network, how much inventory you want? And they will say, we need 3 months. So suppose in Frankfurt, they said they need 3 months. In Berlin, actually, it happened. And they were able to sell it within a month. So to send it out, they have to go by air. So when they contacted us, we said, let me see. And we found out that the ship is going to arrive to our port in Jeddah in a few days. Immediately, we organized, this is like 2018-19, a truck to take it from the port through Iraq to the north, put it on the rail, on the Turkish rail, and reach them in 8 days. Had they sent it by air, it would have cost them a lot. So this is where we feel as a port, we're going beyond our service into guiding and helping the customer. I tell you, the logistics is an amazing, and that's why we invest in logistics, but I can answer you that physical is important because you cannot do business in digital without having the facilities available for you. It's very important.
Your Excellency, our time is up. If you want to end on a note, a forward-looking note, in 30 seconds, what do you think are the trends that will shape global trade going forward?
Definitely technology. This is the only thing that keeps us awake at night, because anything can happen that can disturb our businesses. But we are today working with many partners how to disrupt the supply chain. The supply chain is the only industry have never been disrupted. Okay, I can give you one example. We had a big retailer from UK who was talking to us. We invite them to speak to our people. And he said, we keep 104 days of inventory, 104 weeks. That means 2 years. So when he finished, I told him, I have one question. Why do you keep 2 years inventory? He said, because I have items on the shelf, 80% of the buyer want them. If I don't have them, they will not come. I told him, okay, I can't promise you, but what if we put our technology people and give you an inventory of 3 months? He said, you're going to save me £100 million. See? So there are so many complexity in the supply chain that needs attention, and we are paying attention to it.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for such an interesting conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I will be seeing you on another panel later on, and now I invite Mr. Richard Quest to introduce the upcoming panel and his speakers. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.